This map traces the physical distance from Mount Sinai to the Promised Land. On foot, following a known route, the journey takes exactly 11 days. Yet Deuteronomy casually drops a mathematical anomaly. An 11-day trip took Israel 40 years. Moses delivers this detail without commentary because everyone standing in front of him already knows why. 4 decades earlier, their parents stood right at the border of the land, listened to the terrified reports of 10 spies, and refused to walk across. They chose fear over trust, and the cost of that single decision was absolute. That entire adult generation died off, wandering in the desert dust. Every single word in the book of Deuteronomy exists purely because of the tragic gap between an 11-day promise and a 40-year failure. The year is roughly 1406 BC. Moses is 120 years old. He is standing on the plains of Moab, looking west across the Jordan River at a landscape he is barred from entering. He led this nation out of Egypt, mediated for them, and watched the sea split. But because of his own momentary failure at the rock of Meribah, God told Moses he will die on this side of the river. The people listening to him are the second generation. They didn't see the plagues or stand at Sinai. They were either small children or entirely unborn when the sea parted. They only know the harshness of the wilderness. Moses knows his time is up. If you know you are about to die, you don't waste your breath on trivia. You pour out everything that matters to the people you are leaving behind. Deuteronomy actually translates to words. It is a desperate, ticking clock plea from a dying father, trying to give his children the tools they need to survive when he's gone. Look at this diagram. It illustrates the structure of a suzerain vassal treaty. In the ancient Near East, when a powerful king conquered a weaker nation, they formalized the relationship with this exact document: a preamble, a historical prologue, the stipulations, and the witnesses. The king demanded absolute loyalty, and he secured it through the clear threat of military violence. If you line up the text of Deuteronomy, you can see it maps precisely onto this ancient legal blueprint. Moses is delivering the law using a format any literate person in the ancient world would instantly recognize. But God completely subverts the engine of the document. Every other treaty relied on fear and force. Deuteronomy replaces the threat of violence with the Hebrew word ahav, love. God tells Israel he chose them simply because he loves them. This culminates in the Shema, the central command of the book. It aggressively calls the people to hear and act, to love God with their mind, their entire self, and their muchness, engaging every ounce of their human capacity. This internal devotion immediately dictates how the society functions. The laws explicitly mandate that every third-year tithe supports the widow, the orphan, and the foreigner. It demands a safety net for the vulnerable and places strict limits on how much wealth and power a king can accumulate. God took the standard contract of ancient imperial conquest and repurposed it to build a community grounded in care. Yet, hidden in the structure of the text is a dark mathematical proportion. This chart compares the exact verse counts in chapter 28. Moses spends 14 verses detailing the blessings of obedience. He then spends 54 verses detailing the curses of failure. Moses isn't being pessimistic. He has spent 40 years leading these people, and he knows exactly what they are going to do. He tells them outright that they will abandon the covenant. He knows their greatest threat isn't the suffering of the desert. The real danger is the prosperity of the land they are about to enter. He fears that comfort and success will convince them they earned their wealth, and they will forget the God who carried them through the sand. This creates a tragic paradox at the core of the final speech. Moses is delivering a comprehensive code of external behavior, knowing full well that a written law has no power to transform the internal human heart. Anticipating this collapse, Moses buries a tiny seed of hope deep inside chapter 30. He makes a startling promise that God himself will one day circumcise their hearts. The external law could only demand obedience. This promise points to a future where God will step in and perform the internal surgery necessary to make true, lasting love possible. Moses also prophesies that God will eventually raise up a prophet like Moses from among them. Shortly after giving this promise, Moses walks up Mount Nebo, views the land, and dies. He is buried in an unmarked grave. The Torah concludes on an unresolved chord. The narrator notes that for centuries, no prophet rises in Israel who knows God face to face. The promise sits vacant. The ancient code diagnosed the fatal illness of human rebellion. The buried promise offered the only possible cure. Centuries later, Jesus of Nazareth is baptized and immediately led by the Spirit into a harsh, isolating wilderness. The timelines present a sharp contrast. Where the nation of Israel wandered and failed over 40 years, Jesus steps into the desert to face ultimate temptation for exactly 40 days. When Satan attacks him, Jesus doesn't debate. He defends himself exclusively by quoting 3 distinct, specific passages from the book of Deuteronomy. Israel complained about bread, tested God, and demanded an idol. In the exact same environment, Jesus trusts God for food, refuses to test his protection, and demands singular worship. He perfectly executes the exact lessons Israel failed to learn. He is the promised prophet like Moses. He finally holds the line where that first generation broke. At the end of his life, Moses pleaded with Israel to choose life or choose death. That choice ultimately doesn't lead to a list of regulations. It leads directly to the person who provides the new heart required to end the wandering.